Hello, everybody. Welcome to, I think we're streaming on Mister's page and mine, Juniper Jen's page. Say hello, Mister.
All the pages. Hello, mister.
We made it to the Shelby Pride meeting, and we are going in to discuss some anti-LGBTQ rights and such. And
No anti-LGBT legislation. We don't want anti-LGBT rights.
sorry, you talk for a minute.
I'm
Me get
talking.
my giggles together. You update the folks that aren't here yet.
Yep. So we're going to talk to. Oh, that's cool. So real quick, demystifying autism. There's a meeting 2 days from now. So that might be pretty cool to check out if anybody's in the area. Melissa just messaged us.
Tell our amazing viewers just to bear with us. Bear with us while we're making our way.
Yep. Just saw the message.
That's awesome. Yay, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Are you going to any of the drag races coming up?
Absolutely. I got my schedule in my pocket. Okay. Hello, everybody. Well, I guess go up and look real quick. Find a safe spot for my coffee. I love that. Okay. Sure. Yeah. Jimmy.
Hello. Welcome to Shelby Pride. I'm Melissa, and I'm for the Iron President. And we're so happy that all of you are here. We have Jen and Kingsler here to talk to us today about current legislation. We are excited for that. And already mentioned after we have the beautiful picture that is brought. If you're watching online, leave the comments too. So anything that you'd like to see us include in our mission statement, or anything that you want to see in our agenda, come up here and jot it down fast. That's over there. Welcome.
To
Hi, I'm Jen. Very happy to be here. I'm really actually exhausted with all of the things that I've been learning about that is going on within our political climate.
Yeah, so last night we do a weekly virtual munch. We just call it Monday Munch. It's kind of a thing we all started, and it ranges in a wide variety of topics. But the past few weeks, we started talking more about the legislation and the things happening to the LGBT community and stuff like that. And it's a more important message than some of the other things we have to talk about. So we've kind of put a little bit of stuff on the side. So last night we talked like relationship anarchy, which we kind of touched on with the last talk we did here for the first hour. And the second hour was more focused on all the more legislation that keeps passing and more things that keep happening. And so yes, it's kind of become, the main point to have at the moment. So
It's because it's rudely in our face,
Mhm.
all of the bills that are being passed. I don't know if you
It
want to
is.
do a rundown. He told me when we
So-
got in here, there was a few more that
So-
you just learned about from today.
last week there was like 476 bills introduced that had some kind of anti-trans language to it. You can see them at translegislation.com. Last night I checked and it said 500, and right before we started this down, it's 504. So it's a massive amount. It's a massive amount being introduced daily, and it's not just anti-trans stuff. I mean, they're focusing on parents and children and things like that, and the fact that all of you are here, myself included, although I'm an ally more than I am in the LGBT community, it affects all of us because, I mean, although I don't know many of you, and I still care about all of you. So that's important that we keep preparing for what's coming. So North Carolina itself, like this is stuff that will affect this state. Now they have a veto-proof majority. The Republican Party does. So now they have impunity to just pass whatever they'd like, and they've shown it by introducing 4 new laws. They have a new bathroom law. They're worried about the bathrooms. They don't even understand what they're worried about, but and that's something I've loved to see lately is people on trans people on TikTok are combating them with their own logic, and that's a start. But there's a new parent bill of rights introduced. Let me get some of those pulled up for this state specifically. So, and I guess some things have passed more overnight here or been introduced at least. So now there are a total of 7 anti-trans laws in North Carolina. Some are just introduced, some are engrossed, which means they've at least passed one part of either the House or the Senate. They passed one of them to be introduced to the next one. So they've got the Fairness in Women's Sports Act, which is they've gone from being broad language to to saying that it has to be boys or girls, and now they are identifying it as. So with the Sports Act, it is your sex that you were born with as far as your DNA goes. So they've limited it to that. They're getting airtight, and that's what we were talking about a couple of weeks ago. Was they started very broad. All the bills introduced right now are getting more specific, but when it started, it was they left wiggle room. With Tennessee, it was the male or female impersonators, but now they're specifically defining your sex at birth, not your gender and all these things. So it's getting messy. Yeah. I just have to stop and think about how some of this stuff goes on to limiting education, which, as somebody that does education and sex education, that's a target to me. So I'm the chaotic person of our group. So that makes me get louder. when you tell me not to do something, I'm going to do it louder if it's for the right reasons. The chaotic good, so to speak. But I always have to clarify that, that's me, not the people that I'm with. Like Jen's, she's lawful good. If we look at the morality alignment, she wants us to do things the way we're supposed to. As I agree, that's how it starts. How you have to start. I know the sad part is they've chosen to introduce bills like this in a non-election year. So in November, there's not much you can still do about it. At bare minimum, all these bills that are being passed right now can't be changed until it's going to take 2 years, because they have this veto-proof majority here that allows them to, like I said, pass whatever they would like. And it starts simple, with the Parents' Bill of Rights. The way it's worded, it sounds like parents are able to make sure their child is getting the proper education and care and all this stuff. But they've added, what's the word I'm looking for? And it's not exceptions, but they've added parts to those bills that say, well, it can't override this law, or it can't override these laws. So
Caveats that
yeah, there you go.
the state having more influence over these matters than the parent being able to legally. And my law abiding self says it's really scary.
And that's the thing is it sounds nice on the surface, and that's the way it's supposed to sound. Parents have a new Bill of Rights, things they are allowed to take care of their child for. But then when you start reading into it, it's saying that you can't provide them gender affirming care. And if anybody doesn't know what gender affirming care is, it's not surgeries, it's not stuff like that. That is a form of it. But pronoun usage is a conflict for some people. I personally don't understand the conflict. I go by like so many different names myself. She calls me Mr. My community calls me Mr. I'm Mike. My name is Mike. So, if anybody's not comfortable with the Mr. or anything like that, that's who I am.
But it's even taking the well, mister, what can we legally do about this?
See, that's so legally in there.
Yes.
But what the things we can do, we talked about a little bit last night, and I went with we can vote, we can protest, we can do all those things, but you can also run for these positions. Your city council, your mayors, start small, because very unlikely any of us are going to go out and run for governor today and knock it out of the park. Because a lot of us don't know how all this stuff still works. We just know it happens. We didn't watch Schoolhouse Rock enough, but those are the things that you can do.
I feel like our support is needed more than all of the everythings. We've got to stand up and show that we support one another and we're here for each other and we care about each other, and we're willing to fight the fight with each other, and we have to collaborate, communicate.
And communication is something we harp on every week. We have a friend of ours that's in Florida, and Florida seems to be the ground zero for all this. Anything that's going to be passed is going to almost run through Florida first to see if it's going to work. So we had to have that talk last night of she's got to move. But at the same time, we also have the conversation of if everybody that can fight leaves, there's nobody left to fight for those that can't leave. So it's conflicting. By no means is it to the point of a Holocaust type situation or anything like that. I've seen people compare it to how the beginnings were. It escalates quickly. I listened to a Jewish lady in an interview. They came for the teachers first by telling them what they can teach, what they can't, what they can say, and that's how it's starting. And it's scary to think that people can, and eventually, if we don't do something about it, will be killed and, to use their words, eradicated, just for existing as a person. And it starts there. They picked the trans part of the LGBT to start with. But we all we remember how big of a fuss it was for the marriage equality. So they start taking away the trans part of things, they're just going to move backwards, until it's their way.
I'm exhausted.
And
it's kind of like gut wrenching, because I am the human that I am who appreciates law, and we've got some really crap laws coming at us, and order that doesn't make any sense anymore. So we just have to be the change we want to see. I am getting tired of saying this stuff though, because
and that's where like we said, the lawful good side comes into things. Is we have to speak through legislation, we have to work on those things, find advocates, find allies, and really make people see that there's
them.
Nothing wrong with anybody that wants to live a peaceful life. If your beliefs are hateful, then it's a little bit different, but I don't know. And that's like I said, the lawful way, the good way. As for me, it's the planning ahead for the protests, the rallies, what will eventually become riots.
I will stay at home.
But the support is going to be just as important as the people on the front lines. I don't know if any of you have served in the military, but you all know there's support, and support matters more. Your medics matter just as much as your infantry. Your people planning these things to happen, they've got to know how all the parts work, and you've got to keep all those parts coordinating. The frame of reference we gave last night was, for every Ulysses S. Grant, you've got to have a Harriet Tubman. And that was a good way to think of it. For every person that's going to be out there fighting, you've got to have somebody that's there to support, to help move people, to help, get those things going there. Yeah.
That's a very good point. That we all have our own different way to help push a better motive and scenario for our lives.
But they've started, so in Florida, I saw a video the other day where they took some trans and non-binary people, a lot of them were younger, teenagers, stuff like that, out protesting. They had them locked in a room like this, and the parents were outside fussing, hollering, let them out. The police were no help. They were standing there. They were just blocking the parents from helping them. So, it's becoming a reality. That stuff everybody said wouldn't happen is starting to happen. The bills they've passed are allowing the state to take custody of kids.
Do you think like because they're targeting kids with the gender affirming behavior, it's like the next step would be like sexuality affirming? I mean, I feel like that's not a huge leap that might come up next.
And it's,
Because I hear both sides, like some say, no, we've come too far. We can't be erased now. But it seems if they are working for the children, which is not, to work backward. Do you anticipate something like that?
I do. I've seen how some of those laws have already changed. It did start with the, in elementary school, we're not going to do this. And it's like, let's do K through 12. And now it's going beyond that. Some states are absolutely introducing bills to ban gender affirming care, period.
Didn't Florida introduce one
Mhm.
for the death penalty?
Yep. So Florida's,
Child abuse, but it included children.
Yes.
yeah, like with,
Visiting custody agreements.
Mhm.
across state lines, so you can provide the gender
Yes.
affirming go back to different
got over right now it's great that there's like even their even their providers can't go in and offer services to adults
Mhm.
because of how it's spread.
Florida was, it's all being done by design. Unfortunately, I mean, it's a plan that they put in place, and it's working. Sadly,
So what do we have to do? We have to make our own plan.
I mean, I'm one that says, they've set the rules to this game. We've got to figure out how to play it. They're not telling us the rules. They're just saying this is the rules, and you've got to figure out how to get around it. But Florida, so DeSantis down there, the governor, started off by calling LGBT people sex criminals. Well, then they introduced, a death penalty for sex offenses and sex crimes. So death penalty is now an option for sex crimes. It doesn't specify which crimes, but just sexual criminals. And now they've gone as far as reducing it from a unanimous vote of a jury for death penalty to now they only need eight of the jury. So they're pushing that line, and they're not getting any pushback, and that's why it's becoming so easy.
I don't mean to interrupt, but why in Florida, especially, and even in other states, we're not seeing legal action? Is it just because there's so much that people like the ACLU and Southern Power Law don't know where to start?
Right, and that's all it is. Like, how do you combat this stuff? Because it's all absolute violations of the First Amendment, freedom of expression. So a drag ban or being trans in public is your expression. So, and I think that's where it's going to have to start, is individual cases and getting them to the Supreme Court. But we all know that takes time too. So, but I think that's all it is. Nobody knows what to do right now. This is, a situation that it's not unheard of, but it's something we haven't dealt with in this way. It isn't people that are illegal in society fighting for their rights. It's people that are legal in society losing their rights. So like the women's suffrage movement, the civil rights movement, the Civil War, all those things are about getting freedom and rights to people. Now we're trying to keep them from being taken.
Yes, big breathing.
And it's scary. Like I said last night, I never thought in my life that I would see times like this of any capacity. People deserve to live their life, and to tell them that they're wrong for existing that's some primitive stuff.
There has been some things that have been overturned and thrown out. Thankfully.
Those are little victories. There are certain things. So West Virginia, one of the panelists we have is trans femme, and has witnessed these bills go, to be passed, and they're shot down. So it's you get those little victories, but it's still everything hangs in the balance until then. Even if they do get shot down, now somebody's going to appeal it. So now it's going to have to go to the Supreme Court of the state, and then somebody's going to appeal the outcome of that, and then it's going to have to go to the federal Supreme Court. And as we all know now, is a majority of conservative panel. So the likelihood that they'll rule in the favor of any minority group is unlikely. Anybody got any questions at all so far?
Actually, I don't mean to switch gears on you, but,
Oh, you're good.
the family and I are about to move here.
Okay.
Coming up in May. And I'm just kind of curious, kind of what's the pulse of Shelby local government, kind of.
So I actually live in Lincoln County, so I think
I'm thinking of much, but how, you know, how.
But we have little pockets like this group, and then there's Shelby Women for Progress. You can find them on Facebook as well. And there's Progressive and Pride group. It's great. I don't know. Are you still in school? Okay, we don't worry about the school board. School board is all white Republican men, and so that's a little iffy. But you know, overall, I don't know, someone else might have a different point of view on this, but I don't think it's too bad here. But it's more like people are going to accept you to your face, walk right behind your back kind of thing. Typical Southern thing. So
Yes.
that I'd say that's about it. But you can find little pockets like here in the Shelby Women for Progress to find like-minded people who we are fighting and working hard for
Mm-hmm.
things to change, and they are. Well,
I do feel that things are changing.
Mm-hmm.
With having a business uptown, I do see and talk to a lot of people are a little more open-minded than you might think.
yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, being out in the public here. eh, Things are changing, things are getting better. It is refreshing. Where are you guys? Where'd you say you're moving from?
Not far at all.
Yeah.
Not far? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we were just at a meeting
Uh-huh.
Saturday, for this, they all got together.
Mhm.
And one of the things they suggested is to
Yeah.
the reason that didn't go as well as they wanted is because businesses pulled out. And so they suggested calling donors, Republican candidates, any businesses, you know, thinking about coming here or expanding here, you know, things like that, maybe getting a list together, organizing, and just calling them every day. And saying, you know, this
Put pressure on.
Yeah.
That's a good
Yeah.
avenue that we could, you know.
I like that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
they tried really hard on all of that stuff. Tim Moore is right in our effect, yeah, so they got like a list of individuals and they're trying to do more about visiting and,
They just went to Raleigh, Angel last month
I think so.
for an advocacy day.
I think there's one coming up the 2nd of May too.
Yes.
Second chance advocacy day made effect.
We're trying to like spider web connections between like-minded groups,
Mhm.
for coordination, yeah.
Mhm.
And that's exactly what it's going to take. You know,
Yeah.
building our own smaller communities. So once all the tribes come together, they're bigger than the other one. I make noise. I mean, yeah, I don't just make noise for the sake of making noise, but you know, I make sure that if anybody's going to draw attention, why not, you know, the cis white man, because then it takes the heat off of somebody else that may have a bigger target on their back. And that's where you know, we always joke about that on our munches. You know, I'm the cis white guy. That's just my role. You know, so I'm the one that gets to say stupid things, and everybody's just like, oh, it's you. But it's important to know that is an advantage that I have. You know, and it sucks. I put it kind of bluntly last night when we were talking that of all the voices on our panel, I'm the one that people will listen to, that are on the outside looking in, as far as the other side. So, you know.
We had a lot of wonderful drag queens that we like to go see in Morganton, Washington.
Oh,
You've seen-
I gotta get up there.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm always at work. So, you know,
You're gonna have to catch a brunch. I'll just have,
oh, I'm down for
The next one is sold out.
I know I saw that.
If anyone is interested.
We need to get in
In
line.
Morganton at a pizza place, and there is a show coming up on a Saturday night. It's not as friendly as the brunches are. But it's May the 20th. Yeah. And it's I think $12 for the night. There's so,
It's great. So great food,
They're
great crowd.
Just 2 hours production.
Mm-hmm.
That's
We
fantastic.
love y'all.
So much.
Oh, absolutely. You know, it's one of those things where that's, like I said, that's my responsibility as somebody that's just an ally. Because if I'm standing in front of you, you're taking less of the hit. You know, so that's to know our roles, you know, and how we can do things, you know, as she's fed up with all of it, you
Oh,
know.
I can't take one more hit right
So-
now. I'll be in the bed for a week.
But
So
but
you have to
it's-
stand back here. Fire away.
it's knowing your resources too. You know, knowing what groups around here, Shelby Pride, Women for Progress. You know,
That's very important.
the-
We have to do better.
the multiple groups that you have to keep in touch with those and contact that. Because there are people in there that are gonna be like me that knows the chaotic, crazy ways to get things done. But there's also the people like Jen who knows like the best process of things to do.
Proper prior planning,
Yeah.
folks.
Which, you know, I've always lived by the philosophy that the squeaky wheel gets the oil. So that's why I try to make so much noise.
We are trying to progress. That is a very old statement.
The squeaky wheel gets the oil. It still applies.
It does, darn it.
Exactly.
They fly so high.
But those are the things to watch for. And it's sad to say, but, you know, it's going to take us looking at things that the other side looks at too, you know. Don't get sucked in by it, but, you know, Fox News, they talk about stupid stuff all the time. But you yeah, yeah, I did see that good news yesterday. Yep. That's a good thing. Funny thing, he got offered a job at a Russian TV show. Yeah. All right.
Things like that.
It sounds like an Onion headline, but you know,
It makes me nervous. It really just makes me wonder what's really going on.
mhm. And it's all a game.
I don't know if y'all saw Jeff Jackson had posted a video where he said that this is his first time up there, and that he said the people that are screaming and yelling on TV when they're live, behind the scenes when the cameras aren't there, they're not like that.
Yeah.
They're completely different.
I learned just a few hours ago, I had to tell her that Dominion and Fox are both owned by BlackRock. So one company sued the other company, but the parent company doesn't lose any money and can still write all this stuff off. I mean, it's to people in those positions, it is a game. Yeah, I fear for the next generation. You know, growing up, my dad, he's kind of in the middle. He's conservative on some things, but he doesn't really talk politics very much. But he's always told me, you know, after I had my son, he was like, I hope there's a world for him when he gets older.
Do you have recommendations oscillating between anger and depression and like coping with it?
So this is actually a good wrapping up point. Thank you. So I would really like for all of us to start a virtual get together and a group check-in. How are we all hanging and keeping up with all of the stuff that we've seen? Once monthly, kind of like this, probably the same week, but virtually, so that we don't necessarily have to gather here, but we can still gather together. And just to be a check-in for each other and be there for each other.
Absolutely. I think, you know, something like what we can get with David and Melissa and get with you on. And, you know, I said, it doesn't have to be the same Tuesday. You know, you obviously just want to meet in person because that matters too. But, you know, another day of the month, just hop in, you know, almost like a safe space. You know, And thank all of you for being here. I know like I'm just kind of rambling up here because my mind has got so much stuff in it about these things. It's hard to put into words. It's really scary if you're the parent of a child that's trans. If you're the parent, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, their teachers, used to, like, when I was in school, teachers were somebody that we could trust and go to and talk to about anything, and now they don't have that outlet because the teachers could be forced to out them.
So mind-boggling to me.
That was another law we saw passed last night, but now teachers, if a child is requesting to be called by the pronouns that they are not born with,
Have to have a
then
form filled out.
now they have to either have parent
Parents.
signature or they have to notify the parent so the parent can give permission to use a word.
One of the laws that they tried to pass a year or two ago, I can't remember if it's here in Florida, was even like with her having short hair, like that they would have to inform me that she was not gender conforming because her hair was short.
I remember that. I think that was Florida.
Yeah.
That's insane.
It doesn't matter.
Teachers have enough to do.
This doesn't matter. You're going to school for an education, or even if you're playing sports, it doesn't matter if you're playing with a boy or a girl or boy or whoever you're playing with. We're all people, and you're a kid, and we're having fun. And I hate that we are even having our children worry about this right now.
Oh, yeah, it was a big
Yes, it
deal.
was
Like
cool.
when I was growing up, I lived in Kings Mountain. I remember a little girl, Brenda, joined the Optimus football team. It was like a newspaper article.
Yeah.
People were like, that's awesome. And now it would be the complete
The
opposite.
brakes are getting put on all of it.
So I don't know. But it affects at least everybody in this room. And if it affects you, it affects somebody you know. And if it affects them, it affects somebody they know. So whether people want to take sides or not, it's coming to that point where neutrality is no longer becoming an option.
You can tell how scared they are.
I mean, you've got kids, they call them the under 10s is what I've seen them called. And they're kids protesting. And it was in reference to the gun laws and stuff like that when those kids were killed in Tennessee, but there's still children protesting something. And they shouldn't have to. I mean, geez, be a kid, right?
No.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's it
is.
really is. But
It should be scared of the generation coming up. They really should.
Yeah.
and I think that's what it is. It's
There's
their
no
last
hope.
power grab. Yeah,
They're not too far off from being of that age to hold
Yep.
on with some of the older Gen X or
Mhm.
Gen Alpha or
Gen
Gen
Alpha.
Z.
Gen Alpha.
And that's where I see our responsibility to keep up and keep our eyes open and aware of these people and, keep them in check and make sure they're actually who they're presenting
yeah.
their political views to.
That's what happened
No.
here.
Yeah.
Switch parties.
And that's how they gained that veto-proof majority was by that one switch.
I feel like she should have to say that every year.
Oh, yeah. And unfortunately, it's one of those things. There's no rule for it.
Well, they can, her district could remove her from office under specific circumstances.
Right.
But whether or not her district's willing to organize to do that,
All right.
because it takes a substantial amount of her district saying, no,
Right.
you said your words.
And we can't get people together for anything. And it sucks. Like I said, because once you do that, we discussed that a little bit last night, was you got to have another election, you got to do all these special proceedings, and then it costs a lot of money. And then that's all it becomes is, it costs too much to worry about. Whereas, I mean, I would rather have us blow the money to have accurate representation. Because if the LGBT community in that area voted for her, then they believe that she was on their side. And then now she no longer represents her constituents. So,
Well, she was in her fourth or fifth term.
right. Like, I mean,
Like that, like,
you didn't just switch. I mean, you were bought out at some point. You just didn't tell anybody.
But it sounds very premeditated.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
yeah, I saw somebody on TikTok say, watch what she does after she loses the next election.
Mhm.
That'll tell you, watch and switch.
Mhm. I don't know. Does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns? I mean, we all have concerns, I know, but as far as if anything anybody here can help with, I mean, we're a big community here, so we're a little community, but we're a big community, and we're here for you. Yeah.
Anybody else want to second chance on thinking Raleigh? I don't know about that. Where go in Raleigh for the capital. Bunch of politicians. They have buses. You have to go to Charlotte.
I think that David shares.
Yeah, it's like,
I don't know all the details for it.
So let's.
the details and the links are on the Shelby Pride, so be able to scroll down, probably like 6, 7 posts ago.
So if anybody wants to just repost it today, you know, we can get that to the top of it.
Stay if you're interested. Let's find each other.
I think it's a Tuesday, so you know, I'm always down. You know, it's a chance to. And if you don't get the bus, it's only like a 4-hour ride, so you know. So you know that's where we have to start, is with our voices. Unfortunately, my chaotic side says we should start somewhere else, but if we want to be taken seriously, we have to stand together. You know, I've even seen it as far as people trying to drive a wedge within the LGBT community. You know, and that it's one big family. Whether you're lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, asexual, pansexual, all the things in the alphabet mafia there. You know, it's, you have a responsibility to look after the other. And allies.
I'm sorry, I don't know if y'all notice, every now and then he'll say something and I'll start singing a song in my head. Lucky you're not hearing it. Okay, we are family.
But we absolutely are, and we have to remember, you know, during the AIDS epidemic, it was, you know, that's how the L.
Yeah.
I did learn that. That's how the L became the first letter. It used to be GLBT, but the lesbian community came through and started looking after the gay community that was struggling with the AIDS epidemic and being somewhere safe for them and to take care of them, and they were there for them. You know, so now it's everybody's responsibility to jump in and take care of the tea.
It takes a village.
It does. So, and I'm happy to be here anytime. And if anybody else has anything to say, please feel free. You know, we have to have a voice. You know, not just, like I said, not just mine, but you know, I'm there for you guys if I need to be that voice. If I need to say something that's controversial or gonna, you know, hurt some feelings, I'm happy to do so. Stand right in front of everybody. I even have a megaphone in the car, so we'll say it loud.
Yeah.
And you can get one at
that's true.
Harbor Freight for like $30.
He will happily do that, actually. I've seen him do it a few times.
So I'm not afraid to cause a ruckus if I have to. You know, it's like I said, it's.
Is it Kevlar
There's a-
vest? Am I saying that right? Your
Oh
bulletproof
yeah,
vest?
I do, because I used to be a police officer back in the day, and you know they didn't like me for being who I am. But I've still got my, you know, I'm fortunate enough to have one of those under body armors, so like I can put it under my shirts. You know, so I'm down. Just throw me out in front. We'll figure it out.
I think you've also got this mental bulletproof thing going on where you guys are not going to hurt the feelings, and he'll always be able to bring the facts to the table for somebody to, and it doesn't matter, you know, where something's flying from, he'll be able to present it in a manner.
On my personal Facebook page,
I can't do that.
I do it a lot because I try to keep, you know, positive things in the community. either positive for our community or negative against theirs. You know, there's only the only two sides that I can see there now, and you know, every now and then somebody will take my bait, you know, and they'll jump in and try to spew some hatred, you know, hateful stuff. I'm like, well, appreciate you for playing, so you're about to lose, and here's why. But it's just one of those things. I've always been a chaotic little critter anyway, so you know.
Yeah.
But you have to find what works. You know, what's going to work for you? What's going to be the safest thing for you? You know, our friend that's in Florida, it's going to be difficult for them to move. But you know,
Some states that I know.
New Jersey's one of them. New Jersey's a safe haven for.
And see, like, in what makes it so difficult is, as she discusses all the time, you know, she has disabilities, so the climate has to be right. And now, you know, anything north is too cold, and all these things. So, like, it's, but
And
you
then-
have to be ready on a moment's notice.
We also have other parents involved, and as we know,
Mhm.
that's a whole
That one's
situation there too.
to me, that's one of the scariest things that's been passed lately is the you know, if you take your child who's non-binary to another state and the parent in Florida is like, you know, that's my kid, they're not getting proper care unless they're in a sanctuary state like New Jersey, or I think the whole West Coast is set up to be so. But all they have to do is say that you know, they're being abused, and depending on what state they're in, then law enforcement, social services picks them up, takes them back. Nothing can be done because it's in Florida's reach. Apparently, I don't know how that works. But
I know one of my friends told me about a law that Florida was introducing, or a bill, that if anyone, you don't have to live in Florida, but if you visit Florida and
Yeah.
you have a trans kid or you're trans, that they can take your kid in Florida. So,
and that's one of those caveats and kind of those the amendments of those bills. That's the word I'm looking for, is amendments. You know, they've amended these bills to be that way. So, you know, if you're trans and you go to Florida for Disneyland or Disney World, it's down there, but then they feel like taking you while you're there, or taking your kid. You came there knowing exactly what could happen. That's how they're going to justify that. You know, I had a scary thought last night of Disney is having a gay summit,
They just said, okay.
and it's a scary thought to imagine that Florida is so anti-LGBT. What are they going to do? You know, are they going to surround this place and let no one out because they're in the state of Florida? You know, so it's a scary thing. I mean, I think it's. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's, you know, California has their Pride Night coming up, which is neat. Disney's doing their first Pride Night, but it is in California where it's much safer and stuff like that. So
That is where my conspiracy theory lies.
it's,
That is on the agenda. It's going on.
they're going to be in one central location. I mean, and that's their whole agenda, is to eradicate the trans and LGBT community. So, like, it's a scary thought that it will take nothing for the governor to call an executive order to blockade Disney World from people from leaving and then start arresting from there. I don't like to get into conspiracies like that, but it was really like,
Mm-mm.
you
It
know,
was late last night. It was after lunch. Our minds were spiraling.
but it really it
happening right now with conspiracy 3 or 4 years
Exactly.
right. That's what I'm
and that
saying.
is
Like, and I'm
why
not one of
I'm
those.
no longer afraid to stand up and be here and discuss this.
We told our friend
No
last
longer.
night we're 11 hours from where she's at. So if something gets that bad, we'll get there as quick as we can. Happy to leave on a moment's notice. I think the community as a whole, there's enough diversity within the community that there are more than people realize. You know, a census doesn't tell everything.
Mm-mm.
There are only 1.6 million identified transgender people in the United States. That's identified. So
That's trans, what bit that they're trans on certain.
They're also not accounting for their brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and everybody around them that supports them, their best friends.
you know, and like you said, it's the ones that will actually admit on paper, because that paper could be at some point used against them. So
I don't want to say that anymore.
Right. You know, just, and I don't like to say that out loud, but you know, it's coming to a point where people are going to have to hide who they are, just purely out of safety, until, you know, I always call it a tactical retreat until more help comes. You know, do what you have to do until the help arrives to help you do what you need to do. But yeah, so we all absolutely have a responsibility. And if you don't think so, then I don't think this is the right place for them to be. Yeah, I hope it changes. I know it will. I just don't know how long it's going to take.
Any questions? Anyone?
Thank you guys for having us, for
Yes,
sure.
Thank you. And my young people, please make sure you're supporting your friends. And if there's ever situations you feel the need to talk to your parents or anybody about your friends, don't be afraid to, because just speak out.
As long as there's somebody safe to speak to, absolutely.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's just one of the big
I'm
things.
assumingly,
But with this community right here, if there's somebody you're worried about, I'm sure anybody in here you could speak to and would happily help. But the young ones are our future right now. Some of you may have a few years before you can vote, and that's okay. These issues will still be going on. The ones that are here now that can vote will have to do so. We have to, you know, become more involved, because beyond the LGBT issues, they're going to make it harder for liberal-minded Democrats or just independents to vote. It's a minority. They're trying to restrict everything to be as difficult as it can be, because if it's hard to vote, you're not going to want to vote. So if anybody needs to ride to the polls next year, let me know.
all right. So, well, thank y'all for coming.